Hello.
Hello.
Good to see you both. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm gonna stay off camera for now.
Sure, that's fine.
How are you both doing?
Good. I had a productive weekend. What about you two?
Very unproductive in a good way.
Sometimes a relaxing weekend is all you need.
Yeah, yeah.
What about you, Neil?
I don't have a weekend. I'm disabled.
Yeah, that's fair.
I really don't. I don't understand weekends, holidays. If I had a paycheck, I would start celebrating and it wouldn't be weekends.
True.
But yeah, I work about 12 to 14 hours a day to get off of SSDI. And I think it finally paid off. I got a text yesterday where I got some good news from my boss. So
Ooh, elaborate.
he sent me a picture of a tour bus and said, "This is coming your way." And I'm like, I don't think I want a tour bus, but I do want a paycheck. But
Yeah,
they're very, I've talked to Sam this week. Sam and I are going to meet every week. I'm going to help him do the same thing.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm excited.
Yeah. And Erin, I think you're next.
yeah, that would be incredible.
They'll
Yeah,
get, well, a tour bus for everyone, like Oprah. And you get a tour bus,
I
and
dig
you.
it. I'm there.
Hey, I'll never say no to a tour bus.
I wish I was joking, but that's literally what he sent me. He's like, you're at the front of the queue, so I'm first in line for funding, and he's like, and this is coming, and he had it's a listing for a blacked out, like a rock star tour bus. It was so funny.
I mean, if that's exciting, that means good things coming your way.
Well, that's because of the DLC. This is why I wanted to do the open mic, because I'm so happy with the DLC.
Yeah, and then in that spirit, we're recording. Should I do introductions?
Sure.
Okay, so to those of you watching the recording, thank you for joining us today. This will also be repurposed as a podcast recording as an episode of Diversability Amplified. So welcome to our open mic night where we will be discussing with DLC community member Neil Hughes about what the DLC means to him with the intent of preserving cultural knowledge. My name is Erin Tatum. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a white woman with messy brunette hair and glasses and a navy blue shirt, and I'm excited to have you here today, Neil and Sam. How are you both doing?
I'm doing good. I was letting Sam go first, but I'll say I'm good. I'm doing great.
I was gonna say, Neil, I was letting you go. This is your show, I feel like. But I'm doing pretty well.
Perfect. Well, Neil, where would you like us to start in terms of tracing your journey with? Do you want to give some general background on your life, or the point at which you were at when you joined the DLC?
Sure. So I was uh, the general background for me is a long story, a lot of trauma, a lot of disability. And so when I met the DLC, it was because of a National Council on Independent Living, NCIL. So Nickel, they had a podcast. It wasn't a podcast, it was a presentation. And what they were talking about was how to survive an EEOC complaint. So I'd filed a complaint. I didn't know what I was doing, and I needed support. And I was already on the subcommittee for Social Security and Employment at Nichols. So I was doing monthly meetings, and I was trying to create legislation that would help people like me get back to work in meaningful ways. So I'm in voc rehab. I've been disabled. I'm 20 years into this process after being paralyzed on a roof, and then my surgeon cut the spinal cord to my right leg. And then I had a car accident that broke my neck. But on top of that, I'm autistic, and I have an autism diagnosis, and I have childhood trauma. So there's all these different things affecting me, and I'm trying to get support. And Marie was on there. So Marie's not here today, but she was on there saying, oh, if you need support, you're not going to get it here or here or here, but you can get it at the DLC. And she was absolutely correct. That's the quick version of that.
So would you say the DLC really gave you a sense of belonging in your disability identity that you hadn't had previously?
Yeah, so a sense of belonging yes, that's the second event I was on was a off the record with Nico, and I was bawling. I was absolutely having a breakdown on camera because of the pressure I was under, because I was so alone in my fight just for my basic human rights at my employer's hand. They had abused me so terribly, and I had no one that understood an EEOC complaint. And then Nico's like, I don't understand it, but I understand what you're doing. And it's the same work that Nico does every day. And it's the same thing that Tiffany Yu is doing every day. And it's this pan disability effort. It doesn't matter what you're struggling with. If you're disabled, we're with you. And I didn't feel that until I joined the DLC.
And I think that speaks to about sort of the deep chilling effect that isolation can have on the disabled experience, because even though we're one of the largest marginalized communities in the US, there's still paradoxically such a feeling of loneliness and an idea that, well, my needs must not be worth it because they look different from everyone else's needs.
Right, exactly. So I like the pan disability approach that Diversability is taking.
Exactly, because I really feel as though it promotes a unity that oftentimes, again, with disability you don't see, because we're often encouraged so much to focus on our own struggles, but then when we are able to get in these community spaces, we can really understand how much we all have in common in terms of the fight for equality in the movement.
Right. Yeah. So if you want to demoralize a person and their ability to survive, what you do is you take the children away from them, or you tell them to stop using language that they used culturally. And this is what happened with the Indian schools, and taking the children away and absolutely preventing them from speaking their language, whatever that native language was that those kids were using. And when we talk about social justice versus disability rights versus disability justice, there's this long history, and Nico is very good at giving us, and if you ever watch his events, he's very good at giving us the history of disability and how we got here. And that we're literally 50 to 60 to 100 years behind the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, right? That disability rights and disability justice, however you want to frame it, it's lagging way behind on all of these things that we take for granted because of the ADA. Like, oh, we have the ADA. No, we have an attempt at equality and justice, but it's not. What happened to me with my EEOC complaint is a great example. It just didn't work. There's no system to protect me. It says that it'll protect me on the books, but it really doesn't protect me. That's what I learned after 3 years of filing a complaint that my employer turned into a lawsuit. And then they said that I was suing them. I'm like, what? I just wanted you to fix something. And then this consultant that we had on, he's the author of 22 cents an hour. He came on and he said, you'll never get, filing a complaint is a lawsuit. I'm like, they didn't say that. He's like, no, they're not going to say that. But if you file a complaint, it's a lawsuit. So the DLC gave me the resources to find people that I could find people, then I could find more people that were willing to at least give me some legal advice. And then I kind of just had to, even though I was winning the case, I didn't have $530,000 to go to court. So you file an EEOC complaint, they turn it into a lawsuit, and then you owe them, you have to pay to go to court, and the employer has budget for that. And they know that you don't, so they just wait for you to burn out, and that's what happened to me. But I didn't burn out emotionally because I have the DLC. Because every month I can get on and talk to Nico, and I'm not crying anymore. I'm still angry, but now I have control of my emotions, and I'm doing something about it. You know what I'm doing?
What?
I'm telling my story. I'm preserving this cultural knowledge. I just did it. I just got my anger out in a narrative that people can listen to. And I'm hoping that people behind me that come into the DLC, they'll watch this recording and they'll feel a feeling of unity with what I've gone through, and they'll make better decisions than I did.
You bring up a good point, which is that the power of narrative, especially within the disability community and the DLC, cannot be overstated, because so much of community belonging can come from seeing another person and thinking, I identify with them, or they're experiencing something that I'm also experiencing.
Right. My case with the city of Charlottesville was about my autism diagnosis. And they forced me to spend money, not just on court fees and legal fees, they forced me to have an autism diagnosis done. Just because I complained and said, look, this isn't going to work for my neurology. I'm like, well, prove to us that you have a neurological problem. So I did. They didn't expect me to get my paperwork in time. And then I got I filed everything on time. I had everything, every deposition. I really kept up with them, but I don't have $500,000. So they were I feel like they were laughing the whole time. They were sweating too because they didn't want to lose a federal case. But right now, I know, like, to preserve this cultural knowledge, if you think you have autism or if you identify as autistic, if you ask me if you're going to disclose it to an employer, you know what my answer is? You're at the wrong employer. If you've gotten a job without disclosing your identity, then you're working at a place where you have to mask all day. You're at the wrong job in the first place. And there's no point in changing the workplace environment. So I have all kinds of things that I've learned from it that I'll never do again. What I want is a place to leave that for other people so they can pick it up and look at it and go, oh yeah, I got the wrong job. I need to work in an inclusive space for all types of marginalization. So I don't have to feel shame for not being normal on all those different. I have so many ways that I'm not normal. And I literally have to design. This is what I learned is I have to design a world built for my needs. I literally cannot expect an employer to make a world designed for my needs. And the DLC has given me the tools to build that world professionally. When I joined the DLC, I didn't even know how to get on Zoom. I'm a skateboarder and I'm a Paralympic snowboarder, and I like being outside. I don't like being on tech. And then the city shut down my skateboarding program for other reasons, and then I made the complaint, and now I don't have now I'm sitting in a chair in front of a computer screen all day. I was hoping to just have a simple job with a simple life, and now I'm being put into a place where I'm doing podcasts and Zoom meetings and StreamYard, all of these things that came out of being on the DLC. So I was in the DLC for a couple of years, and then a friend said, hey, you should go talk to my other friend. His wife's dying of MS, and your wife died of stiff person syndrome, and you know what he's going through. And then that turned into a podcast. So now we have Neurodope. That's all because I was doing monthly meetings with Nico and doing office hours with Tiffany, and they literally said, just come on, you can take your phone, a camera on or off, it doesn't matter. This is fine. Just be yourself, whatever level of self you can tolerate. So I built a window of tolerance for tech and for having my face on a camera because I'm autistic. I don't like people in my face, let alone my own face in my face, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, because you need those boundaries to feel comfortable and to feel productive.
Yeah, so I think of this as a training ground. It's a professional development training ground. It's literally the collective of people learning to be leaders around disability issues. And it's what I needed, because when you're disabled like I am, which I hope everyone listening knows that they're all disabled the same way, because it's not about my body or my mind. It's about the society I live in. And the leadership is to figure out how to survive a toxic environment. But disability isn't what I contain. I have multitudes of differences, but that's not the disability. The disability is outside of me. It's society, it's my culture. And in order to change culture, you have to be able to speak. You have to have your voice heard, and the DLC is the place to practice your voice. I practice here. I never posted this, but when we used to be more active, like a Discord chat, this is very autistic, by the way. I took every post that I'd made in the last 12 months on the DLC and I did a word count. So I cut and pasted everything I'd posted for 12 months on the DLC and I put it in a Word doc and then I just did the word count. And it was like, it was a novel. It was like 60,000 words posted by Neil Hughes on the DLC. I'm ready to be in the world now. Like, it literally birthed me. It's a safe place to express my frustrations, my fears, my ugly public crying, which I do regularly. I'm crying on public calls every day, but every time I just kind of laugh because it's Nico who's rooting for me, and I'm going to have to I have emotional overwhelm. I cannot control that part of my autism. So now I'm like, fuck it. You want to talk to me about this stuff? I'll be crying on camera. And they're like, oh, we love that. I'm like, of course you do, because you're disability porn mongers. But how do we change the world? By telling our stories.
And I also think it's important to point out, especially in terms of emotional regulation, that there's no wrong way to express your emotions, because I know particularly neurodivergent people are often shamed for how they express or process their emotions, but it goes back to the idea that we live oftentimes in an inherently ableist society, and so what they're feeling and how they're expressing it isn't necessarily wrong. It's just the way that the way that it's perceived.
Yeah, you're making me think of something I can do with it. When I get interviewed from a person that's not coming from this overwhelm that I have, I'll have them put their hand on a hot plate. You know, like one of those hot, like a buffet warmer, you just have like a low flame.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll say, just ask me all your questions, but leave your hand on that open flame. Just ask me all your questions and don't cry and don't scream out. And you just ask me the questions and you cannot move your hand.
Exactly.
Because this is protecting me from your lights and you want me to take it off and I refuse to now. I leave my hat on. I don't wear sunglasses because that's not approved of, but I have a hat on. It usually blocks the light enough. If it doesn't, I bring it down. Because I get a headache back here. And then if I don't honor the light problem, then I get this tightness here and then in my diaphragm. And before I know it, I'm taking shallow breaths and then I'm acting like there's something wrong, because there is something wrong. A TV studio is not designed for autistic eyes. I have 10/20 vision. So I've always had like, read the lines. I'm like, which one? And I read the whole chart. That's my brain. There's nothing wrong with that. All they're looking for is to sell eyeglasses. So no one ever wrote down that I had extra vision. They never wrote down that I had light sensitivity. That's just autism. It's not an issue until they can make money on it. That's the world we live in. So my cultural knowledge lessons came out of the DLC. A lot of what I just repeated is stuff that I've learned here.
And I also think it's worth noting that the people who shame you or try to guilt you about the accommodations that you require or your needs, that's a sign that you shouldn't necessarily be in those networks or those spaces.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong or selfish about wanting to protect yourself.
And the problem we have with Employment and Social Security Subcommittee at the National Council of Independent Living is Neil Jacobson died. That's the problem we have. Neil Jacobson died, and then they shut down that whole committee for Social Security and employment for disabled people. There's a strange thing happening where grassroots organizations are centralizing their business structure, and they're turning into NGOs, and they're collecting funds, and they're not serving the constituents. So I literally got here through serving in a council on employment and Social Security benefits and how to get people back to work with disabilities. And that's gone. So if I hadn't jumped from the DLC, I literally jumped from nickel to the DLC because it met my needs. And now all that stuff I thought was going to be helpful is gone anyway. Judy Herman, Neil Jacobson, these are people that they've literally plowed away. They are the DLC of the 70s. And if you watch Crip Camp, you'll see Neil's wife on there. And if we don't understand our cultural knowledge, if we have to use Netflix Crip Camp to understand what we're doing on a daily basis, that's 30 years old. And that's not effective. The DLC is real-time support for your real-time problems in 2025.
And as important as it is to remember and perpetuate our history, it's also equally as crucial to prepare for tomorrow and the challenges we're facing in the moment.
Yeah, I need to know. I want the history lesson from yesterday, not 1970s. I want to know what I did yesterday that was not going to work.
Exactly, because the only way that we can improve our tactics is to get feedback on them in real time.
Yes, exactly.
Would you say that I know now you're in a place where you're off, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're off Social Security or off benefits for the first time?
Well, here's technically, I would like to be off benefits, but another thing that Social Security does is they want a reporting of your income for 12 months when you're self-employed. So I can't even report that I exceeded so I have 9 months, right, that I can earn above SGI. This is all technical. If you're not in Social Security, you might not have ever heard this. But I have to follow the rules. So I have to exceed my limits for 9 months. Then I have to file my taxes. Then I have to file a report with the SSDI. Then they have to approve the termination of benefits. And then I have to pay back the months that they've paid me the $1,000 they're giving me. So yeah, I would love to be off benefits, but even that process takes almost a year. And I have to save the money and not spend it so they don't sue me for overpayments. And I've been sued twice in the last 25 years. And each time they sue me, they're wrong. And then they put the money in my account. And then I have 60 days to spend it down because otherwise I'll lose my Medicaid benefits. It's a full-time job to be federally disabled. And when I went to get a full-time job at a city, there was no place for me there. That's what I've learned in the last 25 years.
People often question why people with disabilities don't work, and they don't understand. It's because so much of the systems and so much of Social Security and so many benefits are just stacked against us.
I do work. I work to stay in the system. It's literally a full-time job with the 6-month medical financial reviews. People criticize the disabled, and I just say to them, I would like to look at your bank statement right now, please. I think you're lying about how much money you've made, and I'm going to take your health insurance in the next 14 days if you don't turn over those records. You've changed your password, and now I can't get into your bank account. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, then you don't understand Medicaid. You don't understand being on Medicare. You don't understand medical reviews and the financial reviews. And how did I get the money in the bank after I won the lawsuit? I didn't get the money in the bank. They dropped it in there without my permission because they have access to my banking. I'm not a U.S. citizen. I'm federally disabled. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you're complaining about citizens. I'm not a citizen. I'm a ward of the state. And I'm doing everything I can to stop being a ward of the state. And it's for measly a pittance of money. And then if you want your Medicaid and you're on ticket to work and you're working a little bit, they take half of your money. So not only do I want access to your bank account, and not only do I think you're lying about your income, once I figure out how much money you have made, you'll owe me half of that, or you will lose your health insurance. Because 20% of Medicare is covered by Medicaid, and when you're on chemo drugs, that's $100,000 a month. So if I earn $750, which is underneath the levels, and they take the whatever, what is 750, 375? That's better than losing my house. That's my bills for chemo drugs when my wife was dying. Yeah, that's the world I live in. I live in an unfair world in systems designed to crush me. And then I have people at the county fair with t-shirts that say working hard for the hardly working. And when I park at Lowe's, I use a handicap spot. And now the Lowe's near me has moved half of my handicap spots to places that aren't accessible for veteran spaces that are not anything to do with other than the people who run Lowe's wanting to promote their politics. So if you park in the blue panel handicap spot, it says you'll be $50,000 or $20,000 to $100,000 fine for parking illegally in the blue spot. But then there's 3 spots for veterans, and it says parking only, and there's no sign that says that you can be charged a fee. So I now purposely park in the veteran spots.
And people don't understand. Those are small acts of resistance that get us through every day.
And I don't leave my car there. I park there to watch people's reactions because they're looking at a handicap. They're looking at the car to see where I served. So they can come up to me and ask me for my disability rating. My son is a Navy veteran with 100% disability rating, and people literally high-five him in Lowe's because that's like the gold ring. Oh man, 100%. You like have the golden ticket to the VA, and you're making your pay, and you can go get a job and still make your pay. We have veterans on disability that are not touched at all by any of these unjust laws because they served their country. There's 2 types of disability in America, and one of them is not a disability. It's called veterans benefits. So we use the word in ways that aren't appropriate. Those are the things that I would like to change in my lifetime. A real word for the word disability, for what it is that you're struggling with. And the only people that can use the word disability, right? If we want to gatekeep something, sure, we can do that. Or we can notice that it's a global problem. And even in the military, what they're doing is inefficient and it's not good for people. I just have so much to talk about these topics, but the narrative telling these stories is what's important. And I hope that you get a lot of people volunteering to speak up about what they've experienced. I have 6 different versions of disability in play right now in my life. None of them match, none of them line up, and we can go into that or we don't have to. But if we're not talking about these honest problems today so that tomorrow is better, then we're not learning from our history.
Yeah, you can speak about them if you want. I would leave disclosure up to you.
No, I'm just saying I don't know what you would like as a interviewer, if that's the kind of information you want.
Oh, sure, you can talk about different aspects because I also think it highlights that disability can be both physical and neurological because obviously you're an example of that.
So I have differences that I don't call my disabilities. What I'm talking about with disabilities is the stuff outside of my body and my mind. My differences of nervous system, my mind is different and my body is different. That I don't consider that a disability. What I'm talking about is my health insurance. Legal definition is different than my whole life policy with John Hancock, which is a different definition of disability, which is also different for the state level of the Medicaid benefit, which I'm approved for, but I'm not taking, and then the Social Security one. And then there's the workers' comp version. And then there's the voc rehab version. And all they want me to do is focus on my differences. And so therefore I don't have the tools to deal with the 6 different legal definitions of how I am not a valuable member of society. I am being judged on 6 different levels, different definitions for different administrative reasons. And society wants to make it about my nervous system and how it's both physically and mentally different than everyone else. So I think what disability should say is it's your differences, which aren't disabilities, and how they get devalued by your culture. That's how I think of disability. It's the devaluing of my differences so that they don't have to accommodate them because they feel like that will cost them too much. It's administrative definitions. And if we don't have a working definition of disability, then what I'm talking about doesn't make sense. But one of the first things I learned being in the DLC was is it Talia A. Lewis, her definition of disability. And then I started thinking about how many ways am I being disabled? Well, I'm being disabled by my insurance and my life insurance and Medicaid. All of these things are telling me that my differences are a problem. I don't experience my body as a problem. The world experiences my body as a problem. I just experience what I experience.
Exactly, and I can say as someone who has a lot of personal care needs, I know that without veering off too much, I know that that's a consistent theme of my life, and I know a lot of people's lives is your your basic needs acquire this weird socio-cultural currency, and it's like suddenly you're judged by how often are you asking to shower, how often are you asking for meals, how often are you asking to get dressed or even use the bathroom, and all of those incidental basic needs are suddenly commodified and assigned a moral value, and it certainly makes you question your self-worth because every biological need that you have has to go through a kaleidoscope of worthiness. But because the I is usually non-disabled society, you're always going to come out lacking.
Yeah. And my answer to them is as many as you get, as many as you need. Why is my needs different than yours? We're both humans.
Exactly. Um, and I feel like for me personally with my own journey, and I don't, obviously we have different experiences, but I don't know if you've experienced a certain degree of this as well. It's just like constantly being put on the defensive and having to argue for basic human needs and rights is just, it's one of the most psychologically taxing things that you'll ever have to go through, and I truly, luckily enough for them, I don't think non-disabled people have a frame of reference for that, but it's unfortunately an empathy that can only be found through suffering a lot of the time.
Well, that goes into when people want to pull politics. I've been at a birthday party where I was publicly shamed for being disabled, and I literally said, "I would like to look at your bank account." And I literally did that at a birthday party. I need to see your bank account. I don't believe that you've made as much money as you've said you've made, and I believe that you owe me money. As a disabled person, I didn't get the health care I needed this month because I think you were tax evading, and I'd like to check your bank account. If you can check into what I need medically, I can check into what you did with your taxes. And I think you, as a business owner, you've evaded your taxes. And I'd like to do a citizen's arrest. I didn't go that far, but that's where I was headed. The fault that I have as a citizen of America is that I'm not a citizen of America. I'm federally disabled. And these people are assuming that I play by the same rules and I have the same privileges and that I'm gaming a system at their expense.
There's this notion that people with disabilities are freeloaders and social leeches, or that we just sit around eating bonbons in our pajamas all day, cashing social security checks. And disability, I feel like what non-disabled society doesn't understand is disability isn't a, a coping mechanism or like a cheat code to get through life. It's probably the biggest stumbling block to a normal existence that you will ever have.
Yes. Neil Jacobson ran a bank. He was a branch president for a bank. He had people below him. He managed them just fine. He understood business in a way that regular people didn't. And then he died, and they closed down his committee to make a world where that kind of opportunity would be available for all disabled people. And fortunately, I jumped into the DLC before that happened. Within a year of joining the DLC, all my other activities would have been washed up, and I'd already moved on from that. Watching what's going on in the disability justice versus disability rights, the transition, and now this post justice, we're not in social justice world anymore. We've moved out of all of these things that we thought we were going to move into this bright future with DEI, and disability was never part of DEI. It was never intended to actually uplift anyone that was disabled. So there's a bright future for disability if we can get our stories out there.
And really, the importance of representation and the importance of that visibility cannot be highlighted enough.
Yes, I like the disability visibility project. I like the Diversability project. I like Sins Invalid. I like NeuroStem. I like Neuroclastic. These are places that are telling the stories and doing the research and giving us tools to survive a world not designed for any of us.
And there's also power in that resistance, that even in the current climate where hopelessness and apathy can be common and valid emotions or responses for people to have, there's always pockets and corners of resistance if you're willing to look. And I feel like that really reinforces the idea that hope springs eternal for us.
Absolutely.
I know that I also wanted to invite, I don't know, Sam, if you would like to join the conversation or not. Obviously, whatever your comfort level is, but I'd be curious to get your perspective or your interpretation of what disability means to you as well, or any questions that you might have for Neil.
There was a point in the conversation a little earlier, um, when Neil, when you were talking about, it's not really this, so this isn't really a question, but it's more of a validations of sorts. Um, there was a point, Neil, when you were talking about HR, or like your EOC complaint, and that reminded me of something that I want to share with the community, which is I went through a situation with one of my last jobs, and I had to leave because it was a toxic work environment. And one of my biggest learning experiences from that was learning that HR um, is not there to protect me as the employee. HR is there to protect the company. And that was
Yes.
very enlightening and eye-opening to me. And
Yes.
it made me realize that like capitalism and corporate America are not designed for people like us. We don't belong there.
And I'm gonna beat the drum all day long that we're not in capitalist society anymore. We are in a post-capitalist world. The systems that work to create the capitalist model are broken.
So
And
how?
that's
So
what we're experiencing is a disruption, a deterioration of the capital markets.
I totally agree with you. It's like this is what we're going through now is the result of unfettered abuse of capitalism. I'm totally with you. But I'm curious the distinction between capitalism and post-capitalism. What can you clarify that?
Yes, it's an upswelling of value in the markets without actual value.
Okay, that makes
But
sense.
we have private equity is taking money out of the markets and privatizing previously public companies because they have value.
Mm,
So when the billionaires are taking their companies through private equity funds, when they're taking their valuable assets out of the market and leaving the fluff. So if all of and this isn't for me, I don't have a retirement account, but if all of our retirement accounts are based on fluff, while the billionaires are privatizing their assets, that's a post-capitalistic market.
got it. Okay.
We are literally in a war economy for the last 6 years, and this is a new economy with the way asset distribution works. And they're gaming the market by privatizing what's actually making money they take out of the public markets. So these stock indexes don't mean anything anymore.
You can't. I'm sure.
Financially, if you're in the market right now and you don't own a private company, if you don't have private equity in private companies and you're using public equity to fund your retirement, this is a dangerous time for you to be in because we've seen these markets as we built the early teens, the 19s, and this is what's his name? Kennedy. They made him the first SEC chairman because he was the fox. So where we got Joseph and JFK Jr. and all of these Kennedys, they came out of a wealth buildup before there was a Security and Exchange Commission. And the best way to avoid the Security and Exchange Commission is to take your publicly funded company private and leave what's in the market as fluff. So these are not disability topics, but the way this applies is that when you run out of capital, then you start cutting social initiatives like disability benefits and food stamps and Medicare. So when they put Kennedy as the SEC, they interviewed him and they said, "Why did they pick you, a criminal, to be in charge of protecting the market?" He says, if you want to protect the chickens, you got to use the fox. You got to fight foxes with foxes. So we don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
We don't have that. And if we're the chickens, well, then we're in trouble. So I like going to the DLC because I feel like I'll never be a fox, but now I have a good crossbow.
I like that. Thank you for humoring my tangent.
Yeah, of course.
And I feel like even if you're among chickens, even in the moments where you feel like you are, there's strength in numbers.
Yeah, I'm a chicken with a crossbow and I'm building a crossbow factory. Do you guys want to work there?
Hell yes.
All right, yeah.
So I'm actually doing social media. So I just manage other artists and their media accounts. It's really not glamorous how I'm leaving disability because I never wanted to be in the influencer world. But literally the DLC taught me the power of storytelling and I already have a degree in writing. So I'm like, yeah, I can do that. So I picked something that I would never do so that I can be out of a thing that was literally collapsing around me. I got my first paycheck in June as an independent contractor. I'm hoping to get W-2 wages January 1st. I don't care when that happens. I just know that it's happening. So I'll be an employee and I'm an employee that is on camera talking about disability. So I'm getting paid to make the world a better place. And that's not what I wanted to do, but it was way better than what book rehab was trying to get me into.
There you go, and that dovetails back into the power and potency of sharing our stories as people with disabilities as well.
Yeah, I want to make social media great again. So
Well, there's a lot of noise on social media, so I feel like anybody doing anything for good deserves to be uplifted.
well, that's actually, so the initiative I'm part of is an algorithm initiative to watch versus clicks. So right now we have likes and follows and followers, but what about how long people stay on a post? What about how long they stay on a YouTube video? So rather than number of views, the length of the views,
Yeah.
and it's about getting your 60 followers that are what bases the algorithm to be them actually in community with you. I'm not part of a disability community. When we say that it's the largest minority, the disability community, I'm like, that's a statistic that there's, yes, 25% of Americans are disabled. Half of them, no. A quarter of them, no. Not even a little sliver of those people have anything to do with what I need out of a community. I don't believe in a pan disability community that includes 25% of Americans because I know the politics of most of them are conservative. When we do a disservice, in my opinion, we do a disservice when we say we're the largest community of marginalized people because most of the people that are disabled in America are ableist and they're collecting benefits and they're reporting their income to the government while they also do side projects that they're not reporting. That they're just like, yeah, I just get a check and then over here I do this and it's all under the table. I've never done anything under the table. I literally want to leave disability and replace that benefit with something that's financially better than what the government was offering me. That's a very small number of people. If we take 25% of America and you put me in the community of the people that really want to get to work and make their lives better and also make the world better, I can tell you how many people that is. For me, my community is you guys on this call. I don't consider community as people that won't pay attention to me. So I'm in a community of 3 Americans and there's 25% of us that are disabled. I think we should make that number bigger. I think we should preserve this cultural knowledge so we can actually build a disability community.
And that goes back to the power of our futurity and the importance of hope in terms of looking towards the next generation and what we can uplift them and set them up to help them achieve.
Right. Yeah.
I think whatever DEI meant or means has to be reinvented in a way. Like, I think we need to be, I'm starting to think anyway, we need to be in a post DEI world, in terms of like, not that I'm anti DEI. I just think that it's been one, it's been soured by politics, and two, it was always innately political. I learned fairly recently that DEI was intentionally, or disability was intentionally left out of DEI, because it allowed the powers that be to continue to take advantage of disabled people.
Yes.
So I think that whatever, like the system needs to change, as kind of
Yes.
cliche as that can
Yes.
sound. It's true.
So for me, the idea would be like what happened with Toyota Corp in the 80s.
I don't know if I know that. No. I don't
Yeah,
know.
so Oppenheimer made the hydrogen bomb, and Eisenhower or somebody, I forgot who dropped it, on Hiroshima, Nagasaki.
That I remember.
So what happened to Japan is they lost their hierarchy. They lost the emperor's still there, but he has no power. They have no military. The only weapon they have is economic strength. And Toyota Corp, this is the emperor's kingdom, right? This triangle.
Yeah.
So the emperor's at the top. Toyota Corp just turned it upside down, and they made the line worker at the top. I can't really do it with my fingers, but so the points down here, and then the line worker, the people building cars, they were the decision makers. And then the people at the very tip of the thing, they supported everyone with finances. So the line workers had to see a problem, analyze it, say how much it would cost to fix, and the return on investment, and it would go to their middle management, and then it would go to the VPs, and it would go to the chairman and the board, and then it would be a final vote by the president, if it even went that far.
You know what that sounds like? Socialism.
It wasn't. It's called lean manufacturing.
Okay. I was being a little snarky, but
No, that's the problem is so DEI was a political solution for if you use a political hammer for an economic problem, you're going to never get to the economic solution. So if you take away someone's political structure
Mhm.
and all they have is economic weapons, Toyota Corp figures out really quickly, if we don't figure this out, where's the power imbalance? It's in giving everyone a purpose in Toyota Corp. It's called lean manufacturing. I'm trained in that, so I like to talk about it.
Got it. Okay.
But we have, in this world, we have autonomy on one side and we have authoritarian on the other. So we have extreme authoritarianism and we have extreme autonomy. Those are the ends of the spectrum. But in the middle, you have examples of people that are balancing both the authority and the autonomy of everyone in the group.
Mm-hmm.
So it's healthy workplace environments. And Temple Grandin says, what's good for the cow is good for the slaughter industry. And I'm saying the same thing. What's good for disabled people is good for everybody. So the curb cutter effect is a way to talk about that. Tiffany Yu does a lot of talking about that. And what we're not talking about uplifting one segment. We're not talking about platforming one segment. We're saying, let's make the basic needs met of everyone because it'll make everyone benefit from that.
Absolutely.
So that's been proven in business, and those are stories that we can start talking about. We can start giving a curb cutter effect, not from a political vantage, but from a profit-based vantage. And that's how Temple Grandin used her disabled station in life to uplift an entire industry, and it lifted her out of disability into world fame. And she's sold a lot of books, and she's had a full-time job at a university, and she was raised by well-educated parents until one of them left. So, like I said, the definition of disability, who's putting a label on Temple Grandin? Nobody, because she's financially solvent. Financial solvency solves disability. And that's not a capitalist thing. That's saying if we make space for everyone, we end disability. It's not a political issue. It's a resource issue. We're not resourcing people properly, just like they weren't resourcing the animals in the slaughterhouse. I would encourage anyone that's trying to change the world to watch Claire Danes as she acts the part of Temple Grandin in the movie Temple Grandin. That's where we're headed. We're headed to survival mode, like Toyota was faced after World War II, and it took them, when the bomb dropped in the 40s, end of the 40s. So they didn't get their footing for almost 25 years. And what disabled people are good at, they're good at surviving.
Absolutely.
So let's start talking about that, not to prove that we need to be uplifted, to prove that the people at the table who are making decisions are incompetent.
It's to prove that we're leaders.
Yes, the Diversability Leadership Collective.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep.
And I think that's a perfect note to end on as we approach the top of the hour here. But I just wanted to say thank you so much, Neil, for sharing your experience. And thank you, Sam, for providing your feedback as well. We appreciate everyone who's watching this. And if anyone has any questions, some combination of us will all always be available as resources to reach out to. Thanks so much, Neil. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
It was a great session.
Yeah, I actually like podcasting, so I think, Sam, you should go.
I